Okay, so I thought I'd do a part 2 on making Old West gun belts. Kind of showed you different styles and stuff in my other video, but in case you haven't seen that one, you can stitch them in like that, bullet loops that is, or they can be laced like that, or you can weave them in and out of the belt. So what you do is you'd put a slot in your belt and then you'd weave it in and then back through the same hole, and then you'd want a bullet around that when you're doing that, and then it would keep it tight. But anyway, the different styles of belts, and tapered versus Ranger overlap, and there's other videos out there too if you're really interested. But one thing I might not have mentioned in the last one, you want a poly cutting board if you're going to be punching anything. My punch table's at a different spot, but if you got use these a lot, you can get them with different, they come with a 1-prong, 2-prong, and a 4-prong, and you use them to take you want to poly mail it, and that's what you make your stitching holes with, because you can't just push a needle through. The kind of needles I like the best are, get that to focus, John James harness needles. They're by far the best I've ever tried. And as far as cutting leather, these round knives or head knives, there's both a little different but similar. They work really good for getting around corners and things like that. And then just regular fabric scissors work really good. I got these at Walmart. They work really good for certain things where you can't use a regular knife. Another thing I use a lot is just a plain old hardware store or Walmart utility knife. Change your blade out often enough, they work great. Something else that can come in handy is a square for getting straight lines on stuff. I just glued some moderately coarse sandpaper on the back so it didn't slide around. And having a straight edge to make your belt is really nice. Again, I glued sandpaper on the back. This is actually a drywall T-square that I cut the T off of. So I wanted something thicker. You don't want it too thin, because if you're cutting along that with a utility knife and it got your hand like this, you don't want that jumping off the edge and cutting you. So you want something fairly thick. As far as cutting surfaces, you can buy poundo board. I didn't do that. What I've got is a bunch of scraps of plexiglass. I work at a hardware store and we cut plexiglass, so I dug scraps out and they work really good. You want to keep a lighter handy for burning. You get done stitching, you tie a knot in your thread and burn the ends. Another tool that's handy, I'm just doing random things here as I think of them, is this leather lace maker. I already got it started because I've always had a hard time starting them, but once you cut a hole in the middle, I just use my scissors. Once you get it, kind of a technique, there's better videos out there, but once you get it started, little tiny piece of leather, and I just got close to 4 foot of lace out of a piece of leather that's about 4 inches around. 4 foot of lace. Just a handy tool. Another thing you can do with it, if you got a straight piece, just put your piece of leather in there, and you want to pull kind of away from you. At least that's how I do it. Get that started, and you just pull like that. And I got another piece of lace. Just really handy tool, not that expensive. You can get them on Amazon. Another thing that you'll want if you're gonna try leather working, do more than just your basics, is awl of some sort. These work really good for making marks in leather, marks to cut, or just a lot of different things. I already mentioned this in the other video, but a good rotary punch. You can get these at a hardware store, like in the horse section for like tack and stuff for like 8-10 bucks. This one I think I paid 8 for, and I've had it for 3 or 4 years. You can get better ones that have replaceable tubes. I don't think this one's replaceable. If it is, I've never looked into it. Another thing that's really nice is a stitch groover. Makes a really nice consistent line for using those chisels, or if you got really thick leather, I'll just take an awl and I just eyeball it, poke holes for my stitching. Having just a regular pair of scissors like this works really good for cutting pattern material. I've seen people use cereal boxes. What makes the best pattern paper for me, sometimes your leather will come wrapped in it, is this kind of paper. Now, most of this I got from my job. When products come in, you have pallet sheets. And a lot of times it'll be this, it's like construction paper. This is a cross-draw holster. So that's what the pattern looks like for that. Make the pattern the same way, but then you just get that cant to it. There's another pattern for another one. And right now, it's a left-handed holster. Now it's a right-handed one, so you got to watch that too. Another thing that's really nice is flexible adhesive. This is Loctite vinyl fabric and plastic, but works really good on leather. You want to use it outside or with good ventilation. Something you don't need ventilation for. This isn't as strong. It's Leathercraft cement from Fibings. Works really good, and a little goes a long way. This 4-ounce bottle I bought like 2 years ago. Use it on almost every project in one way or the other. And I probably still got that much left. I already mentioned the harness needles. Needle nose pliers, really handy thing to have around. This is a wing divider. It's kind of like a compass like you'd use in like geometry class, but just pointed on both sides. Works good for kind of use like this to mark your edges, or if you need to make a circle, you can get the point and make your circle to cut. Just not something I use a whole lot, but fairly often. Just cheap one off of Amazon. A lot of my stuff is cheap stuff off of Amazon, but it works. Another thing that's really nice is a strap cutter. This works really good for doing your belts. You can set it, that'll tell you like how wide. You got your increments. Like if I set this for 1 inch, just a piece of scrap chrome tan leather here left over from a purse I just made to sell in my wife's shop. But once you use your straight edge and get an edge on it, you get it started with one of these. This is all stuff for people that are going to spend more money, obviously. But if you don't want to spend as much money, let's see if I can find one of my first holsters here. That's one of the first holsters I ever made. Rough side in. I cut my own lace for the hammer thong. Really, this holster isn't very good, but functional, yes. Does it look okay? Yeah. This is just a piece of chrome tan. I bought these buckles in a bulk pack. You don't have to buy the buckles. It's just got Weaver Chicago screws, which I bought at the hardware store in the tack section. You can get a 2 or a 4 pack. So really, to make this holster, I had my paper that I made my pattern with. I had my Chicago screws. I had a different rotary punch that my wife already had, but I cut the holes. It's just 2 Chicago screws. That's all that's holding that on. No glue, no thread, no nothing. Which originally I just wrapped a piece of leather from this same side. I just bought a side on the internet and just attached that with another Chicago screw. You cut your holes, put in your hammer thong, whether you put them here or in the skirt like I did, whatever style you like, and cut a piece of lace off the same leather That's what this is. It's not going to function perfectly, but it can work. And you can cut that lace free-handed with your straight edge and a utility knife, but getting an actual tool is much better. But yeah, just like I said in the other one, you go to YouTube and you go to Springfield Leather YouTube channel and look up making a single loop holster. That's how I learned how to make a holster. And I've watched several other videos on different techniques, and Weaver has their leather element with Chuck Dorset that you can learn a lot of other techniques. But for just making a holster, you go watch that one video and attach it like I did this one rather than sewing it. You don't need that many tools. Once you get past the cost of the leather, and you might spend, well, if you go to Weaver and get a strap belly with shipping, 30-35 bucks, and Chicago screws, say another 5, you go up 15 for that, so you're looking at 35, 40, 50. You could probably make a gun belt for about 60 bucks. And for, if you were going to do the, let me be right back, I'll grab a different gun belt. This is the first one I ever made. I used a different piece of leather, and then I just glued that on to my actual belt. So you're not fooling around. You don't have to worry about like messing up your belt and having to start over because you're using a separate strip. And then I used this. I think I put it on the smallest tube, and I just cut like 3 consecutive holes to make my slots. Weaved leather in and out of there, which I had a piece of scrap that I pieced together to use my bullet loops. But if you got like, I don't know, 7 or 8 ounce leather, it would be just thick enough for your holster, but not so thick you couldn't do bullet loops. And if you're not using it for 22, it's going to be fine. Typically you want a thinner leather for your bullet loops, but if you're trying to do it on a budget, you just want to make one rig, and you're not going to get into the hobby, you could do it with the same size leather. You could figure it out, I'm sure. But using that separate thing, and then there, screwed on at the ends to keep it intact. Just got this at the local Ace Hardware where I work. Loctite, flexible adhesive. You want it flexible though, and make you. I think that's a pretty nice looking gun belt for how cheap it was made. Obviously it's dyed black. You don't have to dye it. This is just plain leather. I don't think I even put needs foot oil or anything on that. I don't really use it anymore, but I used it for quite a while. You could keep using it for another 30 years. It's going to last. It ain't going to be as pretty, but it would work. It'll function. So just wanted to let people know that having a cowboy style gun belt is not out of their reach. You can do it on a somewhat of a budget and make something that looks halfway decent. And like I said in the other one, if your friends want one, you can make them and sell it to them at what it cost you to make it. Get your money back. So anyway, just wanted to let people know about that, and that I enjoy leather working enough. I'd like other people to try it and see if they like it. If not, fine. If you do, then it's a really nice hobby to have. Thanks for watching.